Welcome to Practical Business Technology, where we keep you in the know about technology's impact on business. Today's show is sponsored by the Maricopa County Bar Association, and our host is Dave Kinsey, author and owner of Total Networks. All right, well, so we're here in our home recording, not at the office because we're working remotely. I'm Stephanie, and I'm here with Dave Kinsey.
Hi there.
And we're dealing with an unusual situation where a lot of people have been told to go home.
Happy pandemic, everyone. Yeah, welcome to COVID-19 world.
So, business continuity planning is something that we talk about all the time. And then you always think, oh, I'll work on that later. Well, that later is here now.
Yep. But every opportunity or every adversity that we run into is a new opportunity, right?
Absolutely.
There we go. Okay, so I guess this episode we're going to talk about working remotely and COVID-19. Working remotely is the new norm right now, and
what are some surprises that we've seen, or that people might not realize they need to think about when it comes to working remotely?
People have been working remotely for a long time. This is not a new phenomenon.
Sure.
The thing that's new is when you come in, to work on a Monday and you decide, you know what, everybody needs to work from home full time now. Just go home and start working from home. And so normally, when we have people that are stationed and working at home full time, when we do this at scale, when we have a lot of people doing this, we take our time to plan out, make sure that the people are going to have a good work environment, that they've got their office set up, they've got a place to work that's set up, that they've got standard equipment, that we know what we're expecting. Here we're doing this kind of more on the fly, and it's actually working out a lot better than I had a fear of that first day or so. Like after everyone really started, we had a trickle of this, and we were working with people. Then all of a sudden we had a flood. The biggest issues are making sure you got good internet and things like that. But there's more to it than that.
Like what? So how do you know if you have good internet?
Well, one thing that you can do is there's a thing called speed test. Speedtest.net. You can test, and you may want to test from different parts in your home, because all wireless is not created equal. All homes are not created equal. Typically, there's a single wireless access point in a house, and when you're close to it, you can get really good performance. When you're farther away from it, not so much. Depends on if you've got walls in between you and all that. So those are considerations. Wired internet connections are generally better and more reliable, but a lot of people have wireless, and wired internet connections are often in place in office environments, not so much at home.
Sure, yeah. Do you need a firewall in your house?
You should have a device that acts as a security firewall. Yeah, that is ideal. I'm going to open up a whole can of worms of what we're going to get into if you start getting me trying to figure out what to have in people's homes. I don't want people reading into this, all of a sudden switching out what they have in their home, especially not now, because
right.
Change is the enemy of stability. And right now we've changed everything, and we've changed a lot of things. And so one of the things when you do this in a pandemic situation, now that we've gone through this part of a pandemic and we have this again, one of the things we really want to avoid is we want to have managed change. And so you don't want to just upgrade everybody's internet overnight and swap out their firewall overnight. You have chaos. We already have a lot of change as it is.
So, I imagine every business is a little different. All their applications are in the cloud, and it's easy. They just go to a web browser and get to work.
That's ideal. That's where that's where everything's moving. That's where we're pushing as hard as possible.
Or if you have your server in the cloud, like on Azure or AWS or Google
Which
Cloud
we have
Services.
some of that. That's kind of a half measure.
Right.
To put things in the cloud. The general philosophy from Total Networks perspective is everything is moving to the cloud, and everything's moving to the cloud eventually to where it's a native application. One that a lot of people have heard of is Office 365, which is email, but a lot more. And Microsoft continues to add more and more functionality to Office 365. Having that's a native cloud application. It's not a server that we have to procure and set up. Doing these servers in the cloud, that is a intermediate step from having a server on premise to being truly in the cloud. And it may or may not make sense. We really want to go where the application is natively in the cloud, because that's where you really get the benefits. If you're just sort of picking up a server that's in your office and you move it to the cloud, well, you're picking up some additional expenses. You're getting some benefit because you're putting in a data center that's got redundant power, got better.
Okay, I guess my question is if you have your server in the cloud, is it easier to connect to it from a remote location, or is it the same whether it's in the cloud or in your office?
Well, it's not hugely different, except basically you are running always remotely from it. So in some respects, you could say it's going to be easier because you're always used to not having your server physically in the same office as you. But it's fundamentally not terribly different from having a server in your office. The biggest benefit you get is redundant power and cooling and all that stuff of a data center. The way you operate is actually similar. We went from when we had 100 some odd client offices to now like 2,000 client offices, because you have all these home offices where people are working remotely, and little weird things where people are not used to working remotely that just had never done it. And they may have some issues with their home internet and all that. So right now, today, that's what we're largely working on. But there's going to be other things, over time that we expect.
So what are the security concerns?
That's an important consideration, right? Because if you're used to people working in their office, which is a very controlled environment, if you now have people working from their homes, that's an uncontrolled environment. If you have fully hosted applications, it's not such a big deal because you're basically kind of using your web browser and all that. So that's great, and that's where we want to be. But today, there still are certain things that kind of run in an office or run in with the server that you connect to. And there are three main ways that you can connect to that. One is what's called a remote gateway service, which is where you might remote control your desktop PC if you have that. Another is remote desktop server. So you have an RDS or remote desktop server, which is where you have this desktop that's being provided by a server. And in both of those cases, they're very similar. You have the desktop application running on that PC or running on that server, and all the mouse clicks and the screen stuff comes to your PC that's controlling it. It's a pretty secure setup. There's certain things you can do to secure it more or whatnot, but basically, or more or less, but because all your computing is running within that controlled environment. There's a third way, which is called VPN or virtual private network. Depending on how you engage VPNs, you need to manage security. You generally want to make sure you have a controlled, managed device that you're using to VPN if you're accessing it. There's a lot of nuances in this, but that's the general gist.
So is it easy to set up a VPN?
Yeah, it's easy to set up a VPN. To make sure it's secure, though, you want to be careful. The idea of VPN it stands for virtual private network. And there's different ways you can use VPN. You can use VPN as just an additional layer of security to access RDP, remote desktop protocol, or remote desktop gateway. That's something you could do. Or you can have it where this is a computing device, like say, and it now can talk directly to your work network. Well, I would not recommend installing a VPN client, which is the piece of software that's used to access your VPN from a home PC. Like say a home PC that your kids might access, play games on, that you don't know if it's fully patched and it's got proper security and all that, because now you're basically taking a home PC that's not secure and bringing it into your network. Well, that's not a good idea. So there's a right way and a wrong way to do VPN.
Okay. What else should people know or
Well,
think about?
There's a lot of things to think about.
From technology standpoint, I mean, there's probably things like
Having
a routine as you work from home.
Here's a real basic thing that people may overlook. If you truly evacuate your office, you probably want to let people know, like on your website, even more importantly, on your Google My Business. Because Google My Business, in case you're not aware, is where you, it's kind of like the directory of Google. It tells you if you want to Google to go to a restaurant. Maybe not so much nowadays. I don't know. Well, we're all locked down, maybe for takeout. But the idea is you want to know, like, is that restaurant open? Okay, well, it's got its hours on there and whatnot. Is this store open? Well, same thing with your office. Is your office open or closed? Yeah. If your office is completely closed because of COVID-19 lockdown, you want to update Google so you don't have people showing up at your office when you're not there. A lot of people are having, maybe a skeleton crew in their office for things, but some offices are completely shut down.
And well, then you got to think about things like who's getting the mail.
Yeah.
How are checks getting deposited?
Sure. Yeah.
Because
yeah,
unless you have a lockbox.
Well, that is a
lockbox is something that.
Well, yeah, if you have people pay electronically is one way natively. A lockbox is sort of a kind of intermediate approach.
But if you still have checks being mailed to you, someone needs to collect those and deposit them and take care of that.
Yep.
So yeah, you need to think about what the remnants are. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we have most of our stuff electronically or lockbox, which has been helpful.
And what about communication? I mean, I see on a lot of the kids are doing all their classes online. Mm-hmm. Businesses are now doing online meetings. Mm-hmm. You hear a lot of people talking about Zoom, but Microsoft Office is another really cool.
Yeah, Microsoft Teams is amazing. So Microsoft Teams, for those people that have Office 365, which is a heck of a lot of people, Microsoft Teams is included as part of Office 365 and is a very, very valuable tool. It's something we've been using internally for quite some time. We used to use Slack at one point in time, and then Microsoft Teams came along, and Microsoft Teams has a lot of features. It has a lot of the features of a Zoom.
Yeah, you can have meetings where you have video and voice and collaboration.
Yeah, and it's got much more than that. So obviously, it's got all your document sharing and co-authoring of documents where you're in the document at the same time. You've got chat. You've got a very rich collaboration environment. We have a number of our clients that are using Teams. We've been sort of recommending it for people. Adoption has been maybe not. I mean, it's been about as fast as we can keep up. There's been a lot of changes this past year between getting rid of all the Windows 7 PCs and making sure that everyone's on Windows 10, making sure that Server 2008 is R2 and all that stuff's gone. Moving people to Office 365. We've never been busier. Now we have everyone working from home. So it just takes a plan and communication. And Microsoft Teams is a great tool.
It's an excellent communication tool.
We're working to educate our clients more about it. Maybe create more online training.
Okay. Well, any other closing thoughts about?
COVID-19, wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
Social distancing. Yeah. Oh wait, no, you're getting bombarded with that. Yeah, I just say work. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're thinking about the way we work. This is certainly a change for us. I don't expect it to be. If anything, this is just it probably advancing more and more the concept of teleworker as the scare goes away, which we don't know if it's weeks or months or years.
Some people may realize, wow, this is pretty nifty.
Yeah, we've always had people. We've had several employees that work remotely 100% just because of the nature of the way things work and where they live and whatnot. And a lot of people have that. Not everybody's wired necessarily for that. People are social creatures, right?
Yes.
And people have different habits. So,
I think that's where having the video conferencing really helps.
Yeah, Microsoft
I've been
Teams
home
is-
just for a few days now, and doing that, I think, is a lot nicer than just a voice call sometimes, just to feel like you're still in the same room with people.
Yeah. Well, we have all the phones and stuff that work remotely. I'm kind of a creature of habit. I do that, but and I do some of the video stuff. I probably need to, and I do the chat. We're all learning different ways now of working where people are at. I use the video too, but maybe I don't do it as much as I should. So
I guess the other thing I can think of is, for us, we have some people in the office, very, very skeleton crew. They're very spread apart.
Yeah.
There's like 5 people there with 20 feet or more apart from each other, but the rest of the staff are at home. It's knowing who is where.
Yeah.
So being able to communicate like in Teams or in your phone system, kind of just a message of I'm at lunch, or I'm working from home, or I'm in the office, so people.
Well, the one thing that's really nice about Teams is not only it's really very real time kind of thing on your phone, on your computer, which way you're working. And you need to manage so that you don't get bombarded with. The first time we started using Teams, one of the issues I had was message overload. I'm like, okay, I got to focus and get my job done. I can't have all these pop-ups and things interrupting me all the time. So you have to figure out what information you want to know.
Sure. So if you need help
don't.
with settings on that, I imagine they could call you, right?
Yeah, you can do that. But also, I think, frankly, if you just sort of pay attention to this, is like, I can't be interrupted with all this stuff continuously. I'm not going to subscribe to that information. So basically, you can go and control the level of information you get from different teams that you're part of.
Right.
So.
Okay. Anything else?
Stay safe, everyone.
Right.
Happy computing. Happy pandemic. We'll get through this, and hopefully we'll be better for it.
Maybe take this as an opportunity to update your business continuity plan.
Amen. All right. Thanks.